Hi everyone. So the purpose of today's video is to provide you with support with regards to moving out of parasympathetic dominance. And the key to this really is a gradual activation of your nervous system in a way that really feels safe and manageable, whilst facilitating the return of energy, the return of connection, of joy, of states of true rest, regulation, and recovery. So, pacing is really important. The foundational piece to begin with is to establish a practice that feels deeply comforting to you and allow it to be somewhat predictable. So, it can be something as simple as your favorite cup of warm tea in the morning and really turning it into a ritual of really feeling like you are doing something that you want to do, that deeply nourishes you, and that you are making the choice to do it. It can be something as simple as lighting a candle or choosing a type of lighting that you feel really helps you feel held in the moment, whilst also connecting with some grounding techniques. One that is a personal favorite of mine is feeling the contact points beneath my feet. And when we're in a state relating to parasympathetic dominance, what's important is that maybe we actually stand up and like choose a stance where we feel somewhat empowered. So rather than feel like you're about to teeter or tip, forward or backwards, that maybe you take a broader, stable base. And that when you connect with those contact points, that you really feel that you're moving in to a feeling held by your posture. So you're not fighting to stand, so that you don't feel like you're pushing so hard that you're beginning to feel a sense of weakness. That there is just this like gentle yet very strong sense of grounding within this posture that you have chosen. We can also move into a gentle sense of engagement. So we can move into choosing even just one of our senses, whether it's sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch. Again, I will share my personal favorite, which is a gentle tapping. And so you can choose a location on your body that feels welcoming to you. Some people that might feel like it's too much. Sometimes it's enough to actually like put your favorite blanket on you that just feels really comforting, and to really take notice of like how tight it is. Is it too tight? Is it too loose? And kind of notice how your body responds to how it's like resting on your body. Another thing that we can do is to gradually come into a place of social connection. With parasympathetic dominance, we tend to withdraw, we tend to shut down, we tend to try and like even like disappear a little bit from the world. It's like we just really want to put the blanket over our head and kind of not engage, that we feel like any type of engagement is just too much. So, to help us to re engage the social engagement system, but also socially, because really our nervous systems are always signaling the sense of um, survival when we are alone. Our nervous systems don't really like to feel alone, even though sometimes it can put us into these highly protective places where it basically says you're safe on your own. And so there's deeper healing that maybe needs to be done there. But for the interim, how we can begin to gradually bring in this social connection part is to maybe even begin to listen to somebody's voice that feels deeply uplifting to you. And that can be through maybe something that you watched or listened to on a podcast that really brought a sense of like aliveness and connection to you. And also, you can progress to connecting with a very deeply trusted friend, where maybe you can call them beforehand saying, I'm not really in a place where I want to spend a long time out. And can we just maybe just go to a park so that there's less, somewhere where maybe there's just less people around, but somewhere where you can feel like you can connect with them at a time and a pace that feels good for you. And you may also be part of a group. Maybe it's a writing group or a book club or pottery making, or maybe there is some other activity that you again maybe feel like, that might actually be good for me. And let it be a space where you can actually feel fully accepted, held and understood, even if nobody knows your story. You can also drop into these expressive outlets. So you can allow yourself room for creative expression. So that can be cooking, that can be a little bit of movement, that can be journaling. And remembering that when we're in a state of parasympathetic dominance, the inner judge can come out very harshly, as opposed to, say, sympathetic, where we tend to be more judgmental. Within parasympathetic dominance, within this like deeply immobilizing state of self-preservation, self-protection, that this harsh inner judge can really come out. And when you have that awareness, no matter what you bring in as part of your care plan, that you are very aware that this can also be part of that state, and to really not pay attention to it in this place of like harsh criticism, harsh judgment that really weighs you down even more. Move towards being your own inner caretaker and really letting yourself know, if I was being my own best friend right now, what would I tell myself? So you can like subtly engage in these activities that can bring in a sense of like accomplishment, and that like you did that for yourself. And this can help to rebuild a little bit of that esteem, that self-esteem, where you're like worth your own self-care. And after that, we can move towards some of our somatic resources. Again, you don't do all of these in the one day. You're going to pick and choose. But part of the somatic resourcing is that you can begin to connect with a little bit of sympathetic arousal without it overwhelming your system. So again, it might, instead of it being like a whole yoga class, you can maybe do like 5 minutes of yoga. Notice if you found that deeply nourishing, and then maybe move on to 10 minutes. Or maybe you want to go for a walk after it. So again, there is this gentle reintroduction to re-engaging with yourself at this deeper, meaningful level, whilst bringing in a sense of connection to a sense of energy. And that's what really defines the difference between calm and true calm, between passive and peaceful. When we're in true calm and when we're in a state of true peace, there's an energy to it. There's an aliveness to it. There's a connection to it. Because within the parasympathetic dominant state, we can become very passive. Nothing's funny. You're not making decisions. And so you slowly restore this felt sense of who you are, of what your needs are, of what you value, of what nourishes you, of what really speaks to your soul in a way that it feels like you are literally pouring life back into yourself. And the gentleness that's required is simply because we can get into a place with parasympathetic dominance where we can activate to a point where it activates too much. And so we move into like fight or flight, or possibly freeze again. So we can have this like, whoa, too much, too fast, and still bouncing back into this parasympathetic dominance. So this pace becomes very important. And check in with your posture whenever you can. Always remember that your posture is constantly speaking to your nervous system. So if we are in a place where we're really not using our core muscles, where the spine is not so well aligned, then we're signaling like collapse to our nervous system, where we're signaling this place of like taking shelter, of withdrawal, versus like sympathetic, which can be very strong and boisterous, and tone of voice even changes. So play around with your posture. You can even like notice where you begin to feel like it's bringing you back to stability. Play around with your tone of voice. Okay, so maybe on this occasion, when it's parasympathetic dominance, like my voice tends to roll in the parasympathetic direction. So maybe we need to play around with that tone a little bit, and maybe just like come into doing an om or making a hum sound that has a little more life into it, or maybe even sing a song that kind of engages more of a vocal exploration rather than when we tend to come into parasympathetic dominance, we can tend to like our voice can get very quiet, and we can almost be like in a whisper to a point of like just not responding. So these are a couple of things that you can work with. But what's really important is that if you feel like you're in an extended state of this, to really work with somebody who deeply understands this extended dorsal vagal state, this parasympathetic dominance, because it can be extremely immobilizing. It can also mimic depression, and it can also like be that place that can really trigger deeper layers of history that we may not even be aware of. So the remaining in a state of parasympathetic dominance can really impede your physical and emotional well-being. And it can really lead to that longer term fatigue, that longer sense of disconnection, that immobility, and that inability to really want to re-engage with life fully. By gradually working towards restoring balance to your nervous system, you can really help yourself discover and rediscover that sense of vitality, of curiosity, and of these true rest, true calm, true peaceful states that are very, very healthy. And so there's this consistency that can come in, and there's this commitment to fully understanding that there isn't something wrong with you. It's that your nervous system has just really taken over. It has withdrawn you from the world in an effort to preserve you. And that what's really important is that we come back to re-emerging. And rather than thinking about everything else in the world, what's really important is that you really come home to attend and befriend yourself in this moment. And your self-care becomes that priority.